Our discussion today is on personal financial management. Personal. Now, not managing for the Christian Union, not managing for the church, not managing for an organization, just your own personal finance. And the Bible has a lot to say on that. I'll leave about 10 minutes or so at the end so that we can ask questions. But we are hoping to talk about savings and modes of savings. I'll not need to tell you that Mshwari is available, but I will be emphasizing the importance of saving. I will not be necessarily becoming somebody's advertising agency. And I'll be differentiating savings from investments because they are not the same. And we'll be discussing what you need to know in order to start investing. And in all that, we'll be looking at biblical principles that encourage us to save and to invest. We'll try to mention something on investments in SACCOs, in life insurance, and how to diversify investment portfolios. And then we will mention, but we will not spend a lot of time, we don't have enough time to deal with all this, about what happens when you make a loss. Especially when you start something and it totally fails. And all these have to be aligned to somebody who is a student, a university student, who wants to honor God and wants to be a good student, and she wants to save and invest. What I want to emphasize right at the beginning is that investment and savings have something to do with prospering, wanting to be better financially. But your prosperity should be with a purpose. Make wealth, yes, but it must be for a purpose. I wouldn't expect you as a Christian to be somebody who is just trying to make money. Money is not an end, it's a means. It's a tool, like I'll be saying in a minute. So you need a clarity. The other thing I want to emphasize right from the beginning is that for you to save, you must live a life of balance. Balance is a basic human requirement. Even an athletic team, you need a balance between offense and defense. If the forwards are the only ones active, goals will keep going into your side. And sometimes you need speed, but sometimes you need strength. For example, in rugby. Similarly, in our personal finances, for you to be somebody who will grow your wealth, you must learn how to balance your income and your expenses. And we could go on this. We all have to find the balance between various things, even in dieting and health. All that requires balance. But in talking about balance and living within available resources, there's a guy I like calling the clever fool. The clever fool is a guy who had a 2-hour exam, 120 minutes, and he needed to answer 5 questions. And when he went to open the paper, he knows the limited time is 120 minutes, and he has 5 questions. When he went to handle the paper, it turned out that the first question was a question he was revising on the previous night. He was so excited. He believed God must have really smiled on him. So he started doing the exam, and he spent a whole 1 hour doing that first question. Now, when you do that, he said anything and everything he could say on the topic. He knew it anyway. But he had forgotten the other 4 questions that he needs to deal with. It's 120 minutes, he has taken 110 minutes. He is left with to do 4 questions. He was in shock. Now, he had 2 separate problems. He has no time, and even if he had the time, he is confused. You can actually guess what happened when the results came out. On the first question, which was worth 20 marks, because 100 marks, five questions, and they are all equal. He got the whole 120 marks. But unfortunately, on the other 4, he got 4 in one, 5 in another, 3 in another, just marks to show that at least you wrote something. So he got 20 marks on the first question, less than 10 marks on the other 4 questions, so he could not even get that marks. And you that are students, you can understand, the guy got an E. But it has nothing to do with him not being clever. It's simply inability to create a balance. He should have allocated each question marks and then strictly follow it. The fact that you know more in a subject, you will not get any more marks on that question. It has a limit to the number of marks it can be allocated. I want to ask you, in your life and in your financial planning, are you like that? Where you use all your money to discover you needed to pay school fees, to discover that you need transport back home after the end of the semester, and you left with no money. The first principle we need to, if you are going to be left with, to save and invest, is to learn to live within your means. And a lot of financial problems, you need to understand, come from that inability to live within your means. There's no way you can grow your wealth. When the economists call it MPC, marginal propensity to consume, means for every additional money, how much of that is saved? If your MPC is 1, it means you use 100%. You don't get richer. By the end of the time, you have not grown your wealth in any way. Because anything that comes, you use everything else. You do not see yourself growing, and you cannot grow your wealth without saving and investment. You know, fighting about money is not because of money itself. It's because of your attitude to money. You know, belief about money is the problem we call financial problem, but it's really what you think about money. And it doesn't matter whether you have a lot of money or little money. There will still be problems. So the first solution to management of finances is to have the right attitude to money. And you'll get the right attitude to money when you realize that any money you have is a gift from God. Recognize God owns the money. So you cannot do with the money whatever you choose. You need to seek his direction. He is not an unseen visitor in your room. He wants to be in your room to give you directions. So the first thing I want you to understand is you're a steward of any money you have. You therefore cannot use it whichever way you want. You have heard me say before, most likely, that beliefs determine attitude, and attitude determines behavior. So if you can see the way you are spending your money has a problem, that's a behavior. Go back to your beliefs about money, and it will help you to reorganize yourself on that. For example, what is your attitude to wealth? You need to realize that the size of wealth does not determine happiness. Isn't that what Matthew 6:28 is saying? Why do you worry about little clothes? See how the leaders of the field, they do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. That is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire. Will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things, and every father knows that you need them. It's very important to understand here what God is teaching us about money. That you can be happy at any level of income. The point I'm making is that you can live within any income. Somebody is given pocket money equal to 3,000 in one semester. Another one is given 1,000 in one semester. The one of 1,000 lives better, happier than the one of 3,000. Once the 3,000 person has the wrong attitude. Let me ask you a question. Is money a tool or a treasure? If your money is a treasure, then every time you use money, you feel pain because your treasure is getting less. And you can use your money on anything. But if money is a tool, you think, God has called me to do this and this and this. How can I do it? This is the way I want to grow it so that I can serve God. If the money is a tool, not a treasure, then even if you are left with no money, but what you had, you have used it properly, you'll still be a happy guy. You know what Matthew 6:21 is saying? For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So if money is not your treasure, when you have much or you have little, you'll still be happy. So you are able, and once you learn that, you are able to decide, I have 3,000, but I'm going to take 500 and invest. I'll live on 2,500, and you'll be happy. And the 500 once invested will now give you the ability to enjoy money. It's called delayed gratification. And you cannot have delayed gratification when money is a treasure. The second thing I want you to understand, if you are going to end up with well on money, is you need to realize no human being can meet your needs. Because a lot of times the reason why you don't save is because after all it's not your money. Somebody gave you the money. Money, whether it came from a parent or it came from an uncle or it was a salary, it all comes from God. And nobody can meet your needs. So when your father gives you money, it's not your father giving you. It's God giving you using your father. Number two, when your father sends you very little money, don't have a quarrel with your father. Have a quarrel with God. God, why would you make my father give me so little? You need to get to understand your source is not an uncle. It's God. Just look at Psalms 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? Not from a father, not from an uncle. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Is your source of money visible? An employer, an uncle, a husband, a wife? Or is it God who is not visible? Professor Lawrence Crabb, who died not too long ago, wrote a book called Biblical Counseling. And he says in that book, a lot of people who are stressed and sometimes even depressed is because they don't understand that no human being can meet your needs. Nobody can carry another person's load. Why? He himself has so many problems, he can't carry yours. But when you talk to God, God can make somebody who has problem of his own to think of you and help you to invest somewhere. But it's not because he has no place for his money. It's that God has touched him in order for it to. So you need, only God is able to help everybody. Nobody can help you. And you know, the moment I understood that, way back when I was a student, I discovered I don't have a problem with my parents. Even if my money, they said little money. Why? I talk to God about it. I report them upstairs. God, why did you allow my parents to send so little? How can I live on this money? So somehow I'll still be smiling. I'll still thank them for the little money they sent because I don't believe they are my source. And that's something you need to handle. Very, very, very important thing you need to handle. Number 3, you need to hate dependence. What I'm calling dependence syndrome. And that's what the 1 Thessalonians 4:11-12 is saying. Make it your ambition. You know, sometimes people think being ambitious is bad. But here the Bible is the one commanding you to be ambitious. But what are you to be ambitious about? Just go, it's one long sentence. Verse 11-12 are one long sentence. So it says, make it your ambition. And after saying several things, it finishes by saying, not to be dependent on anybody. Make it your ambition not to be dependent on anybody. Be dependent on God, not on somebody else. So seek God to help you to know how to meet your needs. So even as a student, that's why you look for ways of saving, ways of making money, so that your parents, you don't depend on your parents. By the time you are 20 years or older, surely you are an adult. Find a way of depending on yourself where possible. If they are paying the school fees, can you actually meet your pocket money issues? So just pay my school fees. I'll find a way of meeting my pocket money needs. That's look at it and don't quote me. Quote the scripture. It's saying, make it your ambition not to be dependent on anybody. That should be your life calling, to obey the scriptures, not to be dependent on others. Instead, you should always be aiming at increasing your income, and part of that additional income is to help others. You should always ask, how many people am I helping? Not who is helping me, because for you, your ambition is not to depend on others. But you should raise enough money, not just to meet your needs, but to help others. That's where you're going to save and invest. But in between, in verse 11 and 12, we are given a systematic way of how to end up not becoming dependent on others. How? You lead a quiet life. What does that mean? You do not become somebody who is disturbing others. You have your own personal life. When you go to others, you are not looking for anything from them. You are trying to minister to them. You lead a quiet life. If that's not clear, mind your own business. It sounds like an insult. Hey, mind your own business. But this is in the Bible. Mind your own business means you must have some business. Your day must be well allocated. What are you trying to achieve? Everybody should have a vision and mission statement of something they are trying to achieve. And even the studies are part of that process of achieving your calling. And then the things you do, in addition to studies, are things that are helping you to meet your calling. That's what it means to mind your own business. You must have your own business. Even studies, you should not be studying to please your parents. You should be studying because studying is helping you to fulfill God's calling on your life. Thirdly, work with your own hands. That suggests God knows some people work with other people's hands, making deals, conning people. They work hard, then their money disappears with you. No, that's not your own business. You must not work with other people's hands. If you are going to get any money, you must add value to others. Don't sell them air. It must be something that can make their life different. So when they give you 500 shillings, that 500 shillings, you should, in return, you should give them a service or a product which you have done with your own hands that will make their life better. Work with your own hands, just as Paul had told them. Why are you doing all that? So that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders. You know, once you are a dependent, give me, can I borrow? I'll return tomorrow. You will not be able to be a good witness of the Lord Jesus Christ, especially to non-Christians. Whoever pays the piper calls the tune. So you will soon discover you can't witness to people because you have been borrowing from them. Now, that's not a good thing. That's what the Bible is saying. You cannot win the respect of outsiders when you are dependent on others. Even your uncle, when you always, every time you meet your uncle, can you give me this? Uncle, can you give me this other one? You end up with a problem. Find a way of doing something that can give you money. And I hear these days students are not only doing classwork, they're also helping Americans to do their work at a fee. So, and the process, you are earning at night. Because you see, it doesn't have to be during the day. It's just your computer. Online jobs. Here they are being called online jobs. Number 4. Now that you know you cannot depend on anybody, please understand you are God's responsibility, not anybody else. Philippians 2:26 is saying, for he longs for all of you and is distressed. Who is that? You know, in Philippi, there was a church in Philippi. And one of the guys had gone to visit Paul in Rome. And then he actually got sick. Hear this. This man longs for his church, but is distressed. Why is he distressed? That you had heard that he is ill. But Paul goes on to say, indeed he was ill and almost died. But God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but also on me, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. In other words, the guy was sick to the point of death. But he did not want his own church to know about it. In fact, his distress was not because he was sick. He was sick because of them. Now, my friend, the reason why you work and grow your wealth is because you don't want sympathy. You talk to God about your challenges. You don't depend on others. So begging, borrowing, or continuously, so that everybody around you has lent you money at one time or another. It shows, number one, you are not living within your means. Number two, you don't understand this theology. Where, of course, what we are learning is not African. In Africa, if you get sick, all your relatives should know. And if they don't see you in the hospital, there will be trouble. Because once you are sick, you hope the whole clan can get sick. But the Christian thing is, your problems are God's problems, not your clan problem. They themselves must help you, and the Bible tells them to help you, but you are not supposed to be depending on them. It's God who will make them help you on their own, rather than you begging them or asking them. Number 5, be God-made, not self-made. I have emphasized the importance that you are not going to rely on others. Here I'm saying, do not rely on yourself either. In Genesis 14, we hear about Abraham. But Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and I have taken an oath that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the thong of a sandal, so that you may never be able to say, I made Abraham rich. I will accept nothing but for what my men have eaten. Abraham declined gifts from other givers. He says, I, not the Lord, made Abraham rich. You'll be saying, God gave me this. He said, how did he give you? We are the ones who helped you. No. Abraham is saying, I want God to get the glory, so that anything I have, I can tell how God gave me. He blessed my job. He helped me to save. This is how I have made my money. And the glory will go to God. But in all this, we must emphasize hard work. Not making deals, but selling value, doing a service or selling a product. Proverbs 6:9 says, how long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands or rest, and poverty will come on you like a bandit, and scarcity like an armed man. You see people who don't work hard, who don't organize their time to ensure all their day's duties are done, they become poor, helpless beggars. They are suffering from scarcity like somebody stole from them. Then Proverbs 10 verse 4 and 5 says, lazy hands make a man poor, but diligent hands bring wealth. He who gathers crops in summer is a wise son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son. Please understand this. God hates the laziness even more than he hates drunkenness. There are more verses against laziness than there are against drunkenness. Yet you'll find people who drink. If they come to a meeting, a fellowship, they'll be thrown out. But seated in the same fellowship are lazy people who don't do their part and they keep begging from people. God hates lazy people. In hell, when there will be adulterers, there will also be people that are lazy relying and depending on others. So if you are really going to end up saving, you have to have the right attitude to planning and budgeting. Do not ever use money without a budget. And that budget can be budget of 1 month or budget of a semester. If you know this is how much I will get in this semester, if you budget, you'll get money to save. And there's a biblical basis for it. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Luke chapter 14:28 says, will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying, this fellow began to build and was not able to finish. Can you see what Jesus is saying? He is saying, if you are not involved in budgeting, you will embarrass yourself before people. Look at verse 31. Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down, consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he's not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. Here is the biblical basis for budgeting. That whatever money you have, you should never use it before you have budgeted. And budget is not a budget until there is an income side and expenditure, and it must balance. If your budgeted items are more than the money you believe you will be able to get, that's not a budget. A budget must always balance. And when you budget, that's where savings comes in. I normally recommend reading, understanding what the scriptures say. I recommend about 7 items in your budget. The first one is money given to God. And you can read Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 23. And you should budget it clearly, so that if you have a pocket money of 5,000, you know part of that money is not yours. Remove it up front, so that when you are budgeting, it's not part of it. It's not your money. Item number 2 is taxes or money for government. If you have a business, you have to get a license. You have to pay whatever is required. That's what the scriptures tell us. The good thing is that, especially if it is income tax, the government forces the employer to remove it even before it reaches you. So cannot even get tempted not to pay your tax. But that needs to be a principle every Christian needs to know. Jesus told them, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God. And taxes, lack of paying taxes is making you a parasite. Where you have roads, you never contributed. When you have water, you never contributed to the dam. Because you are not paying taxes. It's important to understand in your budget, you must not start eating money before you have removed money to God and money to government. Only after that, the balance of the money is money now you can divide in 5 ways. Number 1 is for consumption. God gives the resources for you and your immediate family to enjoy. You cannot have an MPC of 1, but you can't have one of 0. So you need to understand clearly the scriptures do not criticize you for spending money. Part of that money should meet your needs. So to end up saving everything, and then you are struggling, you are not eating a balanced diet, there's a problem. You must budget to meet your physical requirements. Of course, there is the ways of, you can have a balanced diet. Those of you who are doing nutrition, you understand you can have a balanced diet almost at anything. For example, you want starch. If you are poor, all you need is to buy some maize. Take it to some mill or somewhere, and they are very cheap. And you turn your maize into flour. And you have now porridge every morning. Proper starch. And ugali in the evening. You are okay at a very low. Can you imagine if you use that instead of buying unga from the shop, just go to the Koba, buy maize, turn it, and it is in the same place. You're able to turn it to flour, have it for a gunia, for whatever what you need for the month. But you are the people who can advise me. If you have more money, you don't have to live on ugali and that for your starch. You can buy bread. Bread is far much more expensive because it's manufactured than if you relied on porridge. But both of them are giving you starch. Question mark. Do your cells know the difference between bread and ugali? Or they were after they were not after bread. They were after starch. But your money, you have used a lot, much more money in bread than in porridge. And if you get even richer than that, don't even fall for bread. Buy Weetabix. Again, the Weetabix will be turned into starch. Your cells will still accept the starch. But you have paid much more money. So it's possible under your budget of expenditure to reduce it, meeting your expenses without it being a big bill. But I'm saying if God gives you more money, of course you can start eating other things. Isn't that the same thing with the protein? I'm told, I don't know whether it's true, that vegetable proteins are even better than animal proteins. So you again go to the Koba, buy a debe of beans, boil them every day, eat your ugali with your beans. You are eating a balanced diet. But if you get richer, then buy meat. But once your body cells are getting protein, whether they came from meat or it came from vegetables, it's still protein. If you get richer than that, go for chicken. If you get even richer than that, go for seafoods. But your cells will still be getting protein. So you can save heavily, and yet you still are living a balanced diet. Daniel, in the book of Daniel, knew that fact. The guy was afraid that if he doesn't eat meat, he will not be healthy. He knew vegetables, as cheap as they look like they are for people without money. But they ended up looking far much better than the guys who are eating meat. I'm just trying to get you to see you can actually budget properly, but you don't have to budget all your money into consumption. I believe even vitamins, they are the same. You go for sukuma wiki, you go for things, or go for multivitamin additives for much more money. So, but here I'm saying, before you save, ensure you are meeting your basic expenses. If you die, you'll not be able to be there to enjoy your savings and your investment. So you must budget to ensure that you meet your basic needs. Number 4, you must also meet your extended family needs. You know, 1 Timothy 5:7-8 says, if anyone does not provide for his relatives, especially for his immediate family, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. It means in your budgeting, you should think about people who are close to you. How will you be meeting and eating highly when your younger brother cannot pay school fees? You need to find a way of thinking about them. Number 5, you now budget for needy people. Out of your money, there's money you are giving to your immediate family. That's you. But it's also money that you are giving to people who are helpless. When I call them needy, these are people who cannot pay you back. You know, a student who is not having enough to eat, you give him, but you know he doesn't look ever to have money to buy you tea. That's part of a Christian responsibility. Deuteronomy 5:15-11 says, there will always be poor people in the land. Therefore, I command you to be open-handed toward your brothers and toward the poor and needy in your land. So Christians should not just, we have World Vision, Compassion International, all of them being funded from abroad. We need to look after our needy ourselves. And your budget, before you go to saving, should have something on that. It's only after you have done that you now allow for saving. However, let me correct myself. at least in my mind, I don't save what remains. I actually take saving to the other side. I decide, if I decide, for example, 10% of my money will go to saving. If I'm earning 1,000 shillings, I'll remove 100 in advance. Then I remove the one for God. Then I remove the one for the government. What I'm left with, I remove the one for saving. Therefore, my expenses and what I give to the needy and what I give to does not stop me from saving. But of course, I said you still must eat. How will you arrive at saving? I've already talked about it. By avoidance of excess expenditure. And I've talked about that. Living within your means, finding a way of always doing something. For example, if you are buying a car, you can buy a car like a Mercedes for 10 million, carrying only four passengers. Or you can buy a Mini or a Vix for 300,000. If you are going to Nakuru, the Mercedes will not arrive in Nakuru ahead of you. Why? Because the Kenyan government says nobody is allowed to go above 100 kilometers an hour. And if this can go 150, but it's not allowed. A Mercedes can go 300 kilometers an hour, but it's not allowed. All of us go at the same speed. So why would you be getting a big loan for a big car which you cannot afford? So you can budget until you have something to save. So that's one way of creating saving. Number two, reduction of expenditure of cost. Money saved. Please, you put money in a bank, in a savings account, not in a current account. You should never put money in a current account unless you are likely to use it in the next 1 week. Because in a current account in the bank, you pay the bank for keeping the money. Current accounts are charged by the bank. Because unfortunately, once you put it in the current account, they can't remove it for saving, for investment. So therefore, there's nothing to pay you. But if you put your money in a savings account, that now it's the bank to pay you. But unfortunately, banks pay very little. But at least they will not charge you anything. So whatever it is you have saved, you need to open an account, a savings account. Only if it's money for recurrent expenditure can be moved to a current account. But I guess unless you have a very busy business, you should be putting your money in a savings account. We can talk about debt financing when you are investment and talk about benefits and dangers. But the most important thing is you are saving, your investment should come out of your savings. And I think I've established for you how you can actually end up saving. And I've told you my suggestion would be force yourself. If your parents give you 3,000, force yourself to decide that a certain amount is not your money upfront and put it in a savings account initially. You know, when I call it savings, it means it's not an investment. It must still be liquid enough for an emergency. In other words, current account is for money you are likely to use this week. If you are going to take if this money you will use for the whole semester, put it in a savings account. But a savings account is still liquid enough for you to access money. If you put all your money in fixed assets, then when you need money, you'll not be able to get it. So you really can't call it savings if you are really getting a lot of interest out of it. Because the longer your money is fixed, the more your interest will rise. Look at Proverbs 6. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it is taught its provision in summer and gathers its food at harvest. In other words, saving, even an ant knows. What you harvest is not for eating during harvest. Part of it must be saved for winter. And that's what you do. That's why if you are getting money at the beginning of semester, if you're a student, It must be budgeted, like I told you earlier, to last to the end of the semester, and even allow you to save, so that by the end of the semester, you will not only use the final money, it will also have an income. And you can go to Proverbs 21:20, or even Proverbs 30, verse 24 and 25. All of them are telling you it's unchristian to have a marginal propensity to consume of one. That all money you get, you use all. Here, these are biblical verses teaching you saving is very important. The same way we say tithing and giving to God is critical. Saving is good. It's called, I repeat the words I gave you earlier, delayed gratification. Because finally, that money you will be able to use, but you are delaying your gratification. You are forcing yourself into a lower income. However, I've just told you that any money budgeted for saving, you must believe it liquid enough. Normally, I tell people who are working, they should ensure that their expenses, their fixed expenses, their critical expenses, they must be in savings up to 3 or 4 months. That means even if they didn't get any money, they can last 3 months. Even if they were fired, they can last 3 months without a salary. And it's not the whole salary you need to save. It is save enough and keep it in a savings level that can last you 3 or 4 months. However, anything beyond what you require for 3 months' expenses must be invested away from you. When it's an investment, it's not money you can catch. And when you invest, you don't want that money back. Any money invested, you don't want back. You intend to eat what comes out of the investment. I hope you can see the difference between a saving. Saving, you keep it, but you still need to withdraw it later. In investment, you put it into an investment, but you are not hoping to get the principal back. In fact, when your investment realizes it's whatever you invested it for, you return the principal back. If it is stock, the money that was invested buys new stock or even more stock, but you don't withdraw money out of it. That's why on this investment level is where you can actually borrow and promise somebody interest. And you can borrow in order to invest, because you know whatever interest the lender is asking you, your investment will give you a higher income, a higher interest than what this. So you'll be able to pay back the loan and pay back the interest and remain with additional money. You should never borrow when the income out of the borrowing will be equal to or less than what you are paying the lender. And again, what I'm saying, you do not expect to use the principal at any time. You hope, and you can see, if you keep increasing your investment, it means on a regular basis, you will not only be getting your usual money, your pocket money, there's a stream of money that comes from your investments constantly to add to what you are getting from your pocket money or from your salary. So that people who invest, we can be going to doing the same job. Both of us are earning 50,000 shillings a month. But the guy who saved, by within 2-3 years, will be getting the 50,000 plus another 5,000 out of investment. So you'll be living on 55,000, and yet we are doing the same job. That's why we invest. Matthew 5:27 talks about it. Well then, should you have put my money with the deposits, invest it. Proverbs 24:27, finish your outdoor work and get your fields ready. After that, build your house. In other words, find a way of delaying your gratification so that you are able to live a better life. You know, I keep telling young people that at least you should plan within not too many years after you get employed, not to be in a mortgage house, but rather not to be in a rented house. Why? You must find a house to stay in, but the house can either be rented or mortgaged. Both of them are not your house. The rented one is not yours. The mortgaged one is not yours until you pay the mortgage. The difference is the mortgage, both of them are very deep pits. But the mortgage has a bottom, it's a pit with a bottom. If you stay in my rented house and you stay there for 20 years, after 20 years, kick you out. You just walk out. If it's a mortgage, even if you are unable to pay the mortgage in 5 years, the value of the house has gone up. You will be able to pay the bank, sell the house, pay the bank, and you remain with money. So you can see it is pretty foolish to stay in a rented house for long. And that's one of the because I'm not answering your question, how to invest. Investing in where you stay is an important thing. The other one is insurance. If you have a business and it is taking risks, because everything they say in economics, the higher the risk, the higher the profit. Anything that brings you a lot of money will be risky. But instead of carrying the risk, you can pay a little money to an insurance company and it covers the risk. So that if that business collapses, you will not end up with nothing. The bank will pay you. That's why it is foolish. For example, you have a car and you don't insure it. You have a house, you don't insure it. You have a business and you don't insure it. It's important to insure because the principle the insurance company uses is that if 100 of us insure with them, the possibility is that only 1 or 2 people will end up their business collapsing. And then the others, you use the money from the others to pay the 2 that have collapsed. So everybody then ends up back to normal. So insurance is important. And I'm not talking about life insurance, because life insurance, that's for your family, not for you. Life insurance means you die in order for them to get something. But I'm talking about things that you can get back. But insurance is one method of saving. The only trouble with it is that if the risk doesn't happen and you pray it doesn't happen, it's not a very good investment. But if the risk happens, you can see, for example, it's important to get a medical cover. But if the medical cover is, let's say, you are paying 1,000 per month, let's say 12,000 in a year, and then you have not been sick at all, you feel like that money is lost. But if you actually get sick along the way, and you have to be taken to the hospital, and then that same 12,000 may be covering, the premium of 12,000 may give you a cover of 500,000. So it means you go to hospital, come out, pay 500,000, and all you paid was your 12,000 in a year. So it's important to think about insurance as a method of ensuring you grow your wealth. What about stocks and shares? Even a student can buy, because it depends. Like now, the people who bought Safaricom shares and bought maybe just a few shares because they could only afford 10,000 shillings. That 10,000 may be equal to 500,000 today in value because of the price that has gone up and the dividends they have been getting all along the way. So it's important. The only thing is, with the stocks, you are recommended not to invest in stocks if you are not thinking long term. Because you can invest today with a stock of worth 1,000 shillings. Then something happens in that organization or that particular business. Rumors, whatnot, problems, and the value of the shares become 500. So you have actually, if you sold your shares, you would lose. If you have put 1,000,000 shillings, you have lost 500,000. So they are very risky. Stocks are very risky. But they are also a way of growing your wealth. But you must think long term. Because experience shows, even if it goes down, it will come up. As long as it's a good type of business, it will not go down forever. So if you wait, in 10 years, it will have gone up, gone down, gone up, gone down. But if you draw a line across it, it will be on the way up. In 10 years, it will give you a lot of money. And one of the good things about stocks is that somebody else is doing the work. You are doing no work. You're just getting the dividends back. But of course, you can also do your own business. The only trouble is, if you're an employee, you need to be very careful, because by doing your own side hustle, it could make you so inefficient in terms of your employment that you may end up being fired. And at that time, your business is not your business is not capable of giving you enough money to compare with your salary, and it will be very dangerous. So look for an investment that does not require a lot of your time, where you can get a reliable, honest person to run it for you. And unless over the weekend, during the week, you don't have to get involved in it at all. But the good thing about business is that just like stocks, it can be very risky, but then you are likely to get more money. You can control what happens to your business. And the critical thing is being the type of business which is meeting a need. And you know that need is not something that can stop being needed. That's why you find people who put business that has to do with the stomach. They are assured of continuously. People, even if they say, no, I will not eat anymore, they get hungry and eat again. So go do a business that is meeting a need that's not likely to end. Also go into a business which is not as easy for other people to enter into. Because the trouble with easy business is that you begin a kiosk and it's milk. Even me, I can make a kiosk. You find 5 kiosks all selling bread. And of course, the more businesses are there, the less will be your profit. But it's something you can do, you can get involved in. But the critical thing is, do not allow your side hustle to start interfering with your main hustle. And of course, there are many other instruments. For example, now not talking about business, but talking about things a student can do. You can get into a chama, 5 of you or 10 of you. And next time, and currently the government of Kenya is borrowing quite heavily, they will sell something called, they call bonds. And if you buy a bond, several of you the same bond, the good thing about bonds is that unlike all the other things which are not sure, the bond, you are sure to get your return because there's a contract with the government. Lend me 1,000 shillings, I'll give you 13, like I think the one that came out last week was 13%. Some even give you 14. There are times they even write up to 16. Can you imagine? You put 1,000,000 shillings and it gives you 160,000, and you never, first of all, there's no risk, because unless the whole country collapses, there's no way the government can be unable to lend you. After all they need is to print more money. So there is no risk at all with the bonds. Whereas all the other things I was mentioning have their own risk. Number 2, the return is for sure. And number 3, it is liquid. Because unlike when you buy land, you can't get somebody to buy. The same way stocks are sold in the stock exchange, bonds are also sold. So if you have invested 50,000 and you don't want to liquidate it, you just tell a broker to sell it. And you can sell it, there may be a discount you have to give the new buyer, and the other money, you will get your money back. So it's important to understand that's something you can do. Then there is something called unit trust. When you talk about unit trust, we are referring to things that asset managers like Britam, Old Mutual, there are many of them. If you just Google the word unit trust, you will see there are many organizations dealing with it. What are unit trusts? Unit trust is like a chama, but now a licensed chama by the capital market, where all of us put our little money. Since some investments are asking for very high minimum, the asset managers will invest it on our behalf and then give each person their interest. So you can buy unit trust. Like for example, if you went to Britam or CIC or somebody, and they are assured. Normally there are 3 types of unit trust. You can have the money market one. That one, they give you a minimum return, which you must get. Or you can go for balanced budget, where part of the money, part of the money is being invested in a fixed systems. We can give you a share of return. The other one, they take a risk. Or go to stocks and take a risk. And if you invest unit trust that are to do with stocks, then it means the same risks are there. And that's something you can do even as a student. Even when I left university, it was difficult for anybody to buy treasury bonds. But now they have come to where even 50,000 shillings, you can buy some bonds. So it's important to understand that's an issue you can. So just look for a broker and ask him whether he can help you buy a bond, and that will be possible. I am running out of time to allow you to ask questions, so I may need to stop there so that I deal with only the things that come out in your questions. Sorry, time has just gone, but you can see it's a long subject. Who is helping me manage the questions? I can't see anything in the chat box.
So much for the sharing. I'd like to welcome all of us who have any questions or clarifications. You can just put them on the chat box, and then we facilitate it for the same. Karibuni sana. Just share any and all questions that you have on the chat box.
I was given 60 minutes. I used 55. So you have 5 minutes to ask. You are soaking. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. It can also be a comment. Doesn't have to be a question. And you can unmute and give the comment or the question. Is there a question I did not touch among the questions, the issues I read at the beginning, and you feel I should touch it? I want to tell you 3 things about chama. We say in Kikuyu, kamoige koyaga ndiri no gatigaga shira. In English, whenever you form a chama, you must know you have created possibility for disagreement. When you invest alone, there are no chances you disagree with yourself. You invest with other people, including your mother's sons, your brothers. There is a big possibility of disagreements. But those disagreements shouldn't stop you having a chama. So what do? My second point is, you create a chama with rules and penalties. If you break this rule, this will be the penalty. So that you are not just trusting people to keep the rules. Now within that, the third thing is, do not ask somebody to join the chama who you already know is a thief. There must be vetting. It must be somebody who has been consistently credible. So that if he ever steals or is difficult, it will be a surprise to you. Those are 3 things that I can go on. Those are 3 things that will help you in deciding to have a chama. How can a university student manage to save money? I've talked about that. I gave examples of you are getting 3,000 shillings for your pocket money. And you can force yourself to eat. Instead of eating bread, you take porridge. I think I covered that. You mentioned something on online writing. What your view on the same? I'm not an expert in that area, so I can't help you. But I know somebody who is an engineer, and he told me he has gotten many jobs, engineering jobs. Like an organization wants to design, and they just ask online. People can design, and they promise to pay them money. So I don't know where people get the impression that online writing must be fake. So you need to verify, what are you online writing about? So it can't be all wrong, but maybe it's not all right. But unfortunately, I'm not very good at that. After all, you can tell by my age, I'm unlikely to know about online that much. So it can be, at least I know people who have done it, made money, and from what they told me they were doing, there is nothing wrong with it. According to Christian doctrines, it's good to do online writing jobs. I've already answered it. Find out who are you writing for, what it's about. Don't condemn something because others have condemned it. Find out information. Because if you're an organization, and like for example, I write books, but my typing speed is very low. So somebody just said, Mr. Nganga, how do you write your book? Can I type them for you? So now what I do, I dictate my books, send it to somebody, he emails me back the document, the Word document, I M-Pesa the money. It's online work. Never seen the person. We never have come into contact, but I've written many books without seeing the person or having to come in touch with the person. Because I use a digital tape, so I email the file, the Word document is emailed back to me, and an invoice comes, and I pay the invoice. So it needs to be, we need to understand that it cannot all be all condemned. SACCOs are exactly chamas. SACCOs are chamas. The only thing is, SACCOs have an act of parliament that controls them. Many chamas have no rules. So if you're the alternative between a chama and a SACCO, you'd rather go to a SACCO because they are government officers who normally audit and supervise SACCOs. But it's exactly the same thing. SACCO means savings. It's a savings and loan cooperative society, and it's you actually save together, then lend. The principle is that you become each other's guarantors. So, and you're allowed to borrow. If you put 1,000 shillings, you can borrow 4,000, as long as you pay it within a certain period of time. Normally, it's not very long. 4 years, 3 years, you pay it back. If you are unable to pay, your guarantors will be forced to pay for you. So many things. I joined a cooperative way back, must have been 1979 or thereabout, and I'm still a member up to today. And there are properties I can show you I bought only because I was able to borrow from there. Because you see, they don't ask you for any, they have no assets. They don't ask you for any collateral. You just borrow on the basis of your investment, multiplies by 3 or 4 times, and you get that money and pay it back. So that's what SACCOs are for. And I would really recommend once you are able to get a regular income. Of course, one of the requirements that you have to be regularly saving. So you shouldn't use other people's money and you are not saving. So even after they have lent you the money, you must continue to save even as you are paying back the loan. In your opinion, which is the best unit trust in Kenya? I don't want to answer that because then I told you right in the introduction, I don't want to advertise anybody. So it will not be right for me to do that. And the good thing is with unit trusts, they are also being controlled by the government. Of all those things, chamas are the most risky. And my time is up. So the meeting is back to who is having the meeting?
Thank you so much. It's me. My name is Vincent Korir. Thank you so much for the session. It's been such an enlightening session. I've taken a couple of notes, and I believe I should